But look, joining us on the line now is the man who Ben says was fundamentally ambushed yesterday by Victoria University. Let's see how he feels about it. Jonathan Ayling from the Free Speech Union. Jonathan, how are you this morning?
Oh, good morning, sir. I feel like I need to apologise to an extent to some of your listeners, and that being because I think I encouraged a number of them to watch the event, and that would have been an utter waste of their time in many ways. It largely was a waste of my time and a waste of the university's time, I think. So I guess I just come humbly this morning. Okay,
you would agree with Ben's assessment that this whole thing turned into, I called a bushwhacking of you and Michael Johnson by a bunch of woke academics and their supporters?
Well, I guess that was always somewhat inevitable. I mean, if anyone's followed the sequence of events that have led up to this event, it wasn't surprising that the panels were fundamentally lined up against us. We went initially from a panel of 5 participants, 2 that are prominent free speech advocates and 3 that were predictably relatively opposed to our perspective of free speech. And then an additional 5 panelists were added there, but no free speech advocates. All of them were even more radically opposed to it and entrenched in the ideas of safetyism and identitarian protections and such. And so I think I always expected that to be the case. What I really didn't expect to be the case, Sean, was actually just what a waste of time it was. I mean, quite frankly, it was going to be a panel discussion, and I thought, well, at the very least, even if it's lined up against us, we can have a little bit of back and forth, and who knows, maybe a somewhat interesting conversation can emerge, even if we do.
But I understand you spoke for 5 minutes, then you left the stage and you didn't get a look in.
Well, that's exactly right. So it wasn't until last Wednesday, so just under a week before the event, there was a scheduled call with the Vice-Chancellor and Corrindan to explain what they were expecting out of the event. And it was only then that they told us that this wasn't actually a discussion anymore. It wasn't a free speech debate. It wasn't a free speech discussion. There was to be no dialogue whatsoever. Each of us would be given a set allocation of time. Corrindan would interview us, and then for the rest of the evening we would sit silent. And there was one opportunity for me to make, a 30-second comment in addition to that. But it wasn't even
Who set those rules, Jonathan?
I don't know. I imagine it was with someone within the Vice-Chancellor's office. But, it really indicates to me, Sean, that the university, even the university, and I want to continue
Well, hang on. I just want to nail out who made this such a farce. Who was sponsoring, who was the organiser of this event at the end of the day?
The Victoria University was. And I want to continue to applaud what I think was an attempt at leadership by Nick Smith. I think he does want to try and facilitate better conversations in this space, and this was him trying to do that. However, what I would note is if he actually wants to do that, there's going to be a need for some strong, decisive, resilient leadership in this space that pushes back. Are you saying
he was subverted, his desire to have a proper discussion was subverted by the wokies, by the radicals, by the identitarian, by the critical race theory people?
I think that's exactly what happened, both to Nick Smith at Victoria, to Dawn Freshwater at Auckland, to an extent to Cheryl Della Ray in Christchurch. These are vice-chancellors that are different to I might say, those that are more like Jan Thomas or Neil Quigley, who's at Waikato, or Massey, who kind of believe this more themselves. Freshwater, Nick Smith, and Cheryl Della Ray seem to understand the critical importance of free speech, but they, in my opinion, appear to be have a lot of people around them holding them hostage. And some of the people in Nick Smith's office did a phenomenal job last night, but I think some of them were clearly very concerned that if we actually had a dialogue, that radical Jonathan Ayling might say things that made the other panelists find uncomfortable, and we can't have that.
We wouldn't have a safe space.
And they may even just think that I wouldn't. It may even be that they just think I wouldn't adhere to proper protocol and let people finish their sentence. I mean,
I don't always do that, to be fair. Jonathan.
But they may not, if that was the case, then don't invite someone on a discussion panel. But it wasn't a discussion panel at all. But Sean, my concern is it shows that even universities that are trying to provide leadership in this space are actually, unless they are very clear with what they want to achieve and how they want to achieve it, and resilience to those who will oppose them quite strongly in those attempts, unless they do that, they actually are furthering the forces of polarization. Last night did not provide a course forward in how universities can facilitate free speech. Last night did not provide a marketplace of ideas where bad ideas were challenged by good ideas.
Sounds like me it was a perfect example of cancel culture.
It was just an example of, here is a sequence of 2 hours of sound bites where none of you will actually have enough space whatsoever to dig down into any of the core aspects of your argument. So here's a smorgasbord of superficial analysis, and attach yourself to any of it that you want. So I would say there were probably more people from the Free Speech Union watching the event than from the university. They weren't there in person, they were online. Though I would note, Sean, if I can do a little bit of call out, there were 2 men from the Free Speech Union. I don't know their names, but they came all the way up from Christchurch just to support me in that. And it was the nicest gesture someone's done for me in my professional life. It was very kind, actually. But other than that, there were very few people kind of aligned to my perspective or to Michael Johnson's perspective in the room. But overall, the audience probably was more aligned with what you and I would consider free speech. So there will be aspects there of what I said that they can attach themselves to. For everyone else that was in the room, there were aspects of what the other commentator says that they can attach themselves to. And none of us are more the wiser. None of us are more the enlightened.
Yeah. Why was Palestine? Can you figure out why Palestine got mentioned so much?